Jayne Mansfield. In the golden age of Hollywood, few stars burned brighter or more boldly than Jayne Mansfield. Known as the original blonde bombshell, Jayne didn't just turn heads, she snapped necks. With her impossibly curvaceous figure, including her famously full bust, Mansfield wasn't just competing with Marilyn Monroe, she was challenging her. But behind that radiant smile and those plunging necklines was a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. Jayne studied Shakespeare, spoke 5 languages, and used her sex appeal like a weapon, weaponizing curves to climb the ladder of fame. She posed for risque photo shoots, pushed censorship boundaries, and embraced the shock factor. Her daring fashion choices, like low-cut gowns and wardrobe malfunctions, weren't accidents, they were headlines. She didn't just walk into a room, she owned it. Jayne wasn't just one of Hollywood's most well-endowed actresses, she was a calculated queen of seduction. And her legacy is unforgettable. Marilyn Monroe. She wasn't just a star, she was a phenomenon. Marilyn Monroe redefined beauty, femininity, and desire in the 1950s. With her platinum blonde hair, breathy voice, and famously voluptuous figure, she became every studio's golden ticket and every man's dream. But Marilyn was more than just curves and charm. She was vulnerability wrapped in glamour. Her hourglass body, especially her full bust and sensuous presence, became the gold standard of old Hollywood allure. Yet behind the dazzling surface was a woman craving to be taken seriously, often underestimated because of her sex appeal. She studied acting, yearned for challenging roles, and sought control over her image in a world that wanted her to remain just the dumb blonde. Her beauty may have opened the doors, but her complexity is what kept the world watching. Marilyn wasn't just well-endowed, she was richly layered, both physically and emotionally, and her mystique still echoes through Hollywood history. Sophia Loren. Sophia Loren didn't just arrive in Hollywood, she commanded it with every curve and every confident glance. Born in Italy and raised through war-torn poverty, Loren's rise was nothing short of cinematic. With her sultry almond eyes, hourglass silhouette, and famously full bust, she stood as the very embodiment of European sensuality. But Sophia was never content being just a sex symbol. She brought raw depth, fiery intelligence, and fierce pride to every role. Unlike many of her American peers, she didn't shrink herself to fit the mold. She redefined it. Directors didn't just cast her, they chased her. Off-screen, she exuded strength, embracing her natural figure unapologetically while the world watched in awe. She wasn't sculpted in a studio, she was sculpted by life. For decades, Sophia Loren has remained a living legend, a woman whose physical presence was undeniable but whose soul, talent, and fire made her truly unforgettable. Mamie Van Doren. Mamie Van Doren wasn't just another blonde bombshell. She was Hollywood's wild child before the term even existed. With her sky-high curves, dazzling smile, and a bust line that made headlines, Mamie embodied rebellion wrapped in rhinestones. While studios tried to mold her into the next Marilyn Monroe, Mamie had other plans. She leaned into her sex appeal with fierce independence, refusing to be anyone's carbon copy. Her roles in risque B-movies weren't just titillating, they were trailblazing, pushing the boundaries of what women could portray on screen. Off-screen, she was just as daring, outspoken, sensual, and unapologetically herself. Men chased her, tabloids devoured her, and fans adored her. But beneath the platinum curls was a sharp mind that knew how to stay in the spotlight. Mamie's voluptuous figure made her unforgettable, but it was her raw confidence and refusal to conform that cemented her as one of old Hollywood's most provocative and enduring icons. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor was Hollywood royalty, fierce, flawless, and famously curvy. With her violet eyes, sultry voice, and a figure that exuded old-school glamour, she turned every camera into her servant. Her full bust and classic hourglass silhouette made her a symbol of sensuality. But Elizabeth was never just about looks. She was fire and diamonds rolled into one. From Cleopatra to Cat on a hot tin roof, she brought intensity to the screen that made audiences feel her. Men were captivated, tabloids obsessed, but Elizabeth remained untouchable, an enigma wrapped in beauty. She married 8 times, battled addiction, championed AIDS awareness, and lived life unapologetically large. Whether in a plunging gown or a defiant glare, she was unforgettable. Elizabeth Taylor wasn't simply well-endowed. She was larger than life. Her legacy is not just her legendary beauty, but the power, strength, and sheer drama she brought to every moment, both on screen and off. Anita Ekberg. When Anita Ekberg stepped into the Trevi Fountain in La Dolce Vita, cinema itself seemed to pause and stare. Towering, statuesque, and impossibly curvy, Anita wasn't just a screen siren. She was a force of nature. With her voluptuous figure, especially her famously generous bust, she captured the world's imagination and became a living symbol of unapologetic femininity. Born in Sweden and crowned Miss Sweden before heading to Hollywood, she soon became the fantasy of millions. But Anita didn't just rely on her looks. She commanded attention. Her presence was so magnetic, it barely needed dialogue. Paparazzi chased her, designers dressed her, and directors worshipped her silhouette. Yet behind the glamour was a woman who knew exactly the effect she had and played it with flair. Anita Ekberg wasn't just one of old Hollywood's most well-endowed actresses. She was a walking fantasy, forever immortalized in celluloid and drenched in starlight. Jayne Russell. Jayne Russell didn't just enter Hollywood. She busted through its doors, quite literally. Discovered by Howard Hughes, she became an overnight sensation with The Outlaw, a film that was more famous for her voluptuous figure than its plot. With her sultry eyes, smirking confidence, and notably full bust, Jayne redefined what it meant to be sexy on screen. But she wasn't just curves and cleavage. She was wit, grit, and pure sass. Jayne had a smoky voice, a rebellious spirit, and a sense of humor that made her irresistible to audiences. While censors tried to tame her image, she leaned in with a wink, turning every entrance into a moment and every gown into a scandal. Yet behind the Hollywood bombshell was a deeply spiritual, grounded woman who never let fame compromise her values. Jayne Russell wasn't just well-endowed. She was empowered, unforgettable, and unapologetically herself in a town that rarely allowed it. Gina Lollobrigida. Gina Lollobrigida was Italy's dazzling answer to Hollywood glamour. Bold, breathtaking, and beautifully voluptuous. With her fiery curls, striking features, and a curvy figure that caught every eye, Gina wasn't just a pretty face. She was a powerhouse of talent and charm. Rising from humble beginnings, she quickly captivated audiences with her magnetic presence and sultry silhouette, famously well-endowed and irresistibly elegant. Gina's charm was classic yet fierce. She could play the innocent beauty or the passionate seductress with equal mastery. Hollywood took notice, but Gina never lost her European flair or fiery spirit. She broke barriers as a leading lady and later as a successful photographer and humanitarian. Behind that mesmerizing smile was a woman of grit, ambition, and heart. Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr wasn't just a Hollywood siren. She was a brilliant mind cloaked in stunning beauty. Known for her classic curves and captivating presence, Hedy's allure was undeniable, with a figure that perfectly complemented her radiant confidence. But what set her apart wasn't just her famous bust or glamorous looks. It was her extraordinary intellect. While dazzling audiences on screen with films like Samson and Delilah, Hedy was secretly inventing groundbreaking technology that would lay the foundation for modern Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. A true pioneer, she challenged Hollywood's shallow stereotypes by proving that brains and beauty could coexist. Her elegance masked a fierce determination to be more than just a pretty face. Hedy Lamarr remains one of old Hollywood's most well-endowed actresses, not just physically, but in brilliance and legacy, forever remembered as both a screen legend and a trailblazing inventor. Bettie Page. Bettie Page wasn't your typical Hollywood starlet. She was the queen of pinup, the ultimate bombshell, who redefined sensuality in the 1950s. With her iconic jet black bangs, mischievous smile, and a voluptuous figure that captivated millions, Bettie's allure was bold and playful. Unlike the polished glamour of mainstream actresses, she embraced a cheeky, rebellious spirit that made her the muse of underground culture and the original bad girl fantasy. Her curves, including her famously well-endowed bust, were the centerpiece of countless photographs that pushed the boundaries of censorship and ignited a new era of erotic art. Betty's influence still ripples through pop culture, inspiring fashion, music, and countless artists. Behind her enigmatic smile was a woman who challenged norms, blurred lines, and owned her sexuality with fearless confidence. Bettie Page wasn't just a pin-up girl. She was a revolution wrapped in curls and curves. Raquel Welch. Raquel Welch exploded onto the scene in the 1960s, instantly becoming a symbol of fierce sensuality and timeless beauty. With her luscious curves, radiant smile, and famously well-endowed figure, Raquel captivated audiences worldwide, especially with her unforgettable role in 1,000,000 Years BC clad in that iconic fur bikini. But Raquel was more than just a physical marvel. She embodied strength, independence, and charisma at a time when Hollywood was evolving. Her presence commanded attention both on and off screen, breaking away from the traditional damsel in distress roles to become a confident woman who owned her sexuality unapologetically. Raquel's impact was profound. She inspired generations of women to embrace their bodies and exude confidence. With her natural glamour and electric charm, Raquel Welch isn't just one of old Hollywood's most well-endowed actresses. She's a lasting symbol of empowerment and allure. Diana Dors. Often dubbed the English Marilyn Monroe, Diana Dors was a dazzling starlet who lit up British cinema with her voluptuous curves and magnetic charm. Known for her platinum blonde hair and famously well-endowed figure, Diana was the embodiment of old-school glamour with a rebellious twist. She wasn't content being just a pretty face. Diana brought wit, sass, and a cheeky confidence to every role, captivating audiences across the UK and beyond. Her bold fashion choices and vivacious personality made her a favorite of the tabloids, while her sultry screen presence kept fans coming back for more. Off-screen, Diana's life was as dramatic and colorful as her roles, filled with highs and lows that only added to her mystique. Diana Dors wasn't just a well-endowed actress. She was a vibrant icon who carved her own path and remains a beloved figure in cinematic history. Mae West. Mae West was Hollywood's original queen of sass, wit, and unapologetic sexuality long before the term sex symbol even existed. With her curvaceous figure and famously ample bust, Mae commanded attention not just with her looks, but with her razor-sharp tongue and fearless humor. She turned double entendres into an art form, using her charm and curves to challenge the strict moral codes of her time. Mae wasn't just an actress. She was a trailblazer who owned her sexuality on her own terms, breaking barriers and setting new standards for women in entertainment. Her signature hourglass shape was as much a part of her legend as her witty one-liners and sultry performances. Mae West's bold confidence and magnetic presence made her one of old Hollywood's most unforgettable and well-endowed actresses, a true icon whose influence still echoes in today's pop culture. Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth was the dazzling embodiment of old Hollywood glamour, fiery, seductive, and impossibly elegant. With her iconic red hair, sultry eyes, and a curvy silhouette that included a famously well-endowed bust, Rita became one of the most captivating screen sirens of the 1940s. Her breakout role in Gilda immortalized her as a femme fatale whose sensuality was both powerful and enigmatic. But behind that polished exterior was a woman who battled personal struggles and industry pressures with grace and resilience. Rita's charisma wasn't just in her looks. It was in the way she moved, spoke, and held the attention of everyone in the room. She transcended the typical Hollywood bombshell stereotype by bringing depth and vulnerability to her roles. Rita Hayworth wasn't just well-endowed physically. She was richly talented and emotionally compelling, making her a timeless icon whose allure still captivates audiences today.